So before we get to this week's episode, I just want to check in with y'all real quick. I took some more time away this past week. My house was full. Our whole family was in town. The kids were running around everywhere. It's just life happening at full volume. And honestly, y'all, that was exactly what I think I needed. You see, the day after everyone left, my wife, she wanted to take everybody in the house to the library. It was a rainy day. Nothing else was really going on at the moment. And we've been really trying to collectively learn how to put our devices down. So we're here and I'm watching my kids, right? They're picking out a bunch of books and they're playing with toys. And I'm watching them genuinely get excited about something, something that they wanted to learn. And then something started sitting with me in that moment. The thought just kind of hit me organically. We're living in one of the easiest times in human history, more so when it comes to accessing information. And somehow it still feels difficult to find out what's true and untrue. So when I came home, I couldn't let that go. And that's exactly where this episode came from. I don't think our problem right now is accessing the truth. I think it's how little of discipline that we're bringing to the whole process for real. Truth is still around. It didn't go anywhere, It's just buried under massive speed, under reactions, under the world that we in right now that rewards having an opinion in 30 seconds versus taking 30 minutes to actually understand something correctly. See, these days we have tools that are way more powerful than anything we ever had 10 years ago. And these tools are being used right now by people who haven't really stopped and thought about what these tools are doing to the way that we're thinking right now. AI, it never replaced the thinking process. We started doing that ourselves. The mechanics of it all just made it easier to see what was going on. So let's talk about that. Welcome to Word Forward, y'all, where we like to build structure in this noisy world together. I'm your host, Damien J and this is episode 19. So there was something I noticed while I was watching my kids that day at the library. They weren't looking for the answers like we do now. They were just looking for the subject. There's a difference in that. They would just pick up a book because the cover interested them. They opened it without even knowing what they were about to find, staying curious all the way through the parts that they didn't really understand, instead of what we adults tend to do now, skipping straight to the conclusions. So I sat there and I started thinking about that. When did we stop doing that? At some point, and I don't think it happened all at once, but I started approaching information a lot differently, not to discover it for real, almost like I had to confirm it. I would search for something, right? Something I already believed. I go and I'll find a version of that matched what I was already thinking. And then I'll call that doing my research. I've caught myself doing that with AI too. Asking it questions I already knew the answers to. Maybe even asking it to do the things I already know how to do. Just for it to say the answer back to me in the form that I already understood. Just to hear the answer said back to me in a form that I already knew was correct. I just needed confirmation. That's when you're not using the tool as an assistant. That's when you're paying the tool to become your yes man. I had to really sit and be honest with myself about this. So I want to ask y'all something honestly too. When was the last time you looked something up and genuinely expected it to be wrong? Not hoping that you prove it right. Actually open to the possibility that what you believed going into it wasn't completely accurate at all. It's okay, because if that's hard to remember, that's not a personal problem. That's just how the systems that we just started to use every day trained us how to move. We find things out fast, then we react to it fast, and then we move on to the next thing. And then AI, it just accelerated the whole thing. You see, now you can just get a confident sounding answer to almost anything in seconds, which means the process of learning all of these things that used to slow us down, the effort that it took to actually go and research something, that friction is disappearing. But that friction was doing something real important for our learning process. It was buying you the time to actually think more clearly about things before you even landed on a conclusion. Something else that I started noticing was the things that fool us the most don't usually look suspicious when it's close up. It almost looks familiar. Misinformation, it won't reveal itself. Because if it did, people would catch on to that instantly. It kind of finds the thing that you already care about, the history that you're proud of, the identity that you've been building, the injustice that you already feel about something. And then it walks you right in that door. I came across something not too long ago, right? An AI generated video of two people that have both been dead for decades, speaking about topics that they would have never addressed in their lifetime. It was polished, it was confident looking, it was formatted into something real. But what bothered me is not only that it was fabricated, it was how easy it would have been for it to become part of my thinking if I didn't already have enough context to question it. The reason it almost worked, though, even for a second, is because it activated a emotional response before it activated a logical thought, right? So you feel it before you even get a chance to think about it. You've already kind of decided that you believe in what you saw. Now the question isn't whether you could be fooled or not. The question is whether you're building the habit of slowing down enough before you decide on what you believe in. Here's what I want to be clear about, though. AI didn't create misinformation for us. Fabricated stories, propaganda, manipulated information, none of those things are new here. All AI did was just make those things cheaper for us, faster to obtain, and available to anybody with a reason to use it, right? Some things used to require a team, a budget, and weeks worth of production. Forget about it. Now you can just generate things in minutes. A convincing voice, realistic images, a video of somebody saying things they never said in real time, and all of this at almost no cost. That's dangerous. So the barrier from creating false narratives, that isn't a technical skill anymore. It's full of intent. It means more of the responsibility of filtering what we take in now falls directly on us, on you. These tools can't protect us from themselves. And here's the part that people really don't want to hear, right? A lot of people don't want to do that filtering work. I really don't think it's because they're lazy either. We've just been trained for years now by social media, by these algorithms, by all this infinite scrolling. The system is telling us to move fast and feel things right now before we even have time to slow down and think of anything. Speed is the product now. Discipline is too slow for most to obtain. Discipline means you got to sit with that I don't know yet part instead of having an instant take on that thought that you have. I don't know yet is one of the hardest things to say, especially in the world that we live in now that rewards certainty above everything else. It might be one of the most important things that you can say. I don't know yet. It keeps you open to wanting to learn something. It keeps you honest. It keeps you from building a worldview on a foundation you never really actually understood for real. So if you're building long enough on a foundation that you never really checked, one day something important might just collapse and you won't understand why or how it happened. The danger isn't these tools. The danger is the minds that are using the tools right now. And they're not even thinking about what it takes for these tools to function. Here's something else I've been sitting with. Borrowed thinking. It didn't start with these AI tools. We've been renting our opinions for a long time now. We borrow them from our parents, from politicians, from podcasts, creators. And I mean that honestly. We borrow them from the algorithms that learn what we end up clicking on the most. And then all they did was just start serving us more of what we want or what they think we want, whether it's true or not. AI right now is like a lender. And just like any lender, it doesn't care what you build or what it gives you. I kind of had to be honest with myself about that one. There are a lot of opinions that I carry that I really haven't tested yet. Things that I believe in because I heard them enough times from the people that I trust. I never really stopped to ask if those things would ever hold up. If I actually examine those things, the comfort of that borrowed belief is that you don't have to do the work of earning it. The cost is that it's not really your opinion or your thought. And then when it gets challenged, you don't have the real foundation to defend it because you never built that opinion. It was just trendy. I think that's the episode underneath this episode. This isn't about AI. AI just happened to be the thing that made me look in the mirror and ask these questions. One being, how much of these thoughts do I think are actually mine? How much of this did I arrive at through genuine curiosity, real examination, sitting with these questions long enough until I find the answers that could survive the challenge? How much of it did I absorb, from the right voices, at the right moments, when it was said in the right way, and then I never looked at the information again? The most dangerous thing that AI can automate right now is the part of you that was supposed to stay curious. Here's one of the most valuable skills for the next 10 years. And it won't be how to use AI anymore. Most people will eventually figure that out, just like they did with smartphones and tablets. The most valuable skill will become how to do things for yourself, how to think for yourself, how to create for yourself, clearly and independently, with discipline. While everyone around you is now outsourcing their work to an AI tool, look, the gap is not the technology for real. It's what you bring to the technology, how you use the technology. The person that uses it as a thinking partner or as a research assistant or for a second set of eyes on their own builds, using their own ideas and creativity, they're the ones that are compounding. The person who uses AI just to skip thinking entirely, those are all the people that will be collecting borrowed conclusions that they never really tested for themselves. Borrowed conclusions have a way of failing at the worst possible time, too. And while information has become so cheap to obtain, structure really is the hard part. Anybody can go and collect information now. The question is, what can you actually do with it on your own? That's one of the reasons why I've been rebuilding the Built Different Masterclass. Information is everywhere now. Structure is the real hard part, and it's rare. The masterclass is about how to organize what you already learned and build from that. The link is in the description, so go and take advantage of that. Listen, guys, I don't want to just go and name the problems anymore. So let me make this concrete. The difference between the ones who use information correctly versus the people who will be getting used by the information, it's not the intelligence part. It's a few specific habits to this. Borrowed thinking will see something emotional, feel it, shares it, and defends it, never circles back to it. It builds an identity around conclusions that were never really put to the test. It makes you ask, does this feel true? But disciplined thinking sees the same information, right? Then it pauses. It'll check some of the sources. It will ask who benefits from this being believed. It holds the opinion loosely until it's earned its place in the concrete. It asks the question, can this be verified? Same information, but it's a different process, Completely different outcomes happen. This version doesn't require you to have more knowledge. It just requires you to have more patience, which means it's a choice. Here's the question I started to ask myself. Would I still believe in something if it didn't come from a source that I already trusted? If you ask yourself this, and then the answer is no, then you might not be searching for the truth. You might just be searching for the confirmation to your misinformation. And those two things could look identical from the inside. Misinformation will never reveal itself. It finds the things that you already care about, your history, your identity, the injustices that you might already feel, and then it walks those ideas right through the front door. You feel these things before you even can think about it. And by the time you're thinking about it, trying to figure it out, you already decided to believe in something else. And that other thing could have probably used a little more research, only because it felt true, not because it was facts. So let me say this before I go. The cost of letting someone else or something else do the thinking for you, it takes away from that freedom that the thought required. That freedom for you to actually think for yourself, not just consume the information, not just to react to the information, not just to share that thing that you felt was trendy information. You actually have to search for the truth before you sit with the one thing that was told to you. You have to slow down and actually search for the truth. Ask where it came from. Ask who benefits from people believing in this. Ask whether you believe in it or not. See if it came from different sources. That kind of discipline, if it's practiced consistently, is how you stay free in a world that is working very hard to make borrowed thinking feel extra comfortable. See, my kids, they were doing that in the library in front of me without even knowing how to describe what they were doing. They were just being curious, genuinely open to whatever the book had to say to them, all before they had already decided what they thought. I had to honor that. I think most of us lost that trait as we were growing into adults, and we really don't even remember when it became missing. So I want to leave you with this one question. It's not about AI. It's not about tools or technology. This one is about you. If you took away your favorite podcast, your favorite creator, your favorite news source, and your favorite social media feeds, which opinions would still belong to you and you only? That's something that we all need to ask ourselves. The danger isn't the tools that we use. The danger is in the person that is using them without practicing their own skills. So if this episode made you stop and examine something that you haven't examined in a while, that's the point. Share this with somebody that's moving so fast, they don't understand what is being mentally consumed. You already know who that is. Follow Word Forward on all platforms, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Drop a comment and let me know something. What's something that you believed in for a long time that you later found out was either wrong or misleading? I want to read those, and I'll respond, as always. The new masterclass in the Inner Circle is in the description if you want to take this a deeper level. This is Word Forward, y'all. I'll see you on the next one.